You're listening to Bark and Wag's 15-Minute Vet Talk. Each week, your host, Polly Requa, interviews veterinarians and individuals in the pet industry from across the nation answering pet questions. Bark and Wag podcast is produced weekly for your enjoyment, and show notes can be found at barkandwag.com under the podcast tab. That's BARKNWAG.com. Please remember to subscribe to Bark and Wag 15-Minute Vet Talk.
Welcome to Bark and Wag 15-Minute Vet Talk. I'm your host, Polly Requa. Today we're talking to JoAnne Turnbull, Executive Director of Handi-Dogs. As you know, we recently did a podcast with Dr. Mack, and Dr. Mack is a cancer doctor that survived cancer with the help of his dogs. Dr. Mack is on the board at Handi-Dogs. After interviewing Dr. Mack, I wanted to learn more about the organization. So welcome, JoAnne. Thank you for being on the podcast.
Oh, thank you for inviting me.
Well, I'm super excited to have you and learn more about Handi-Dogs. So please tell us all about your organization.
Great. Handi-Dogs is a nonprofit organization in Tucson, Arizona. We've been around for over 40 years, and what we do is specialize in teaching people with disabilities how to train their own dogs to be their service dogs. So we help people with hearing loss, PTSD, or other psychological disabilities, diabetes that's not well managed, mobility challenges, a wide spectrum of different disabilities. And what we do is we teach them basically how to teach their own dog to do tasks that will directly help them with their disability, as well as provide public access training. So the dog is very well mannered when they take it into public places.
And so how long is the training?
It typically takes our students between a year to a year and a half to completely go through our training and get certified through us. And then we continue training with them on a regular ongoing basis. So every year, if they want to maintain certification through Handi-Dogs, they do have to retest, because we want to make sure not only that the dog is still helping them with their tasks, but that the dog is healthy and is still suitable to go out into public and to do all this extra work as that service dogs are required versus a pet dog.
And so have you ever had a dog that's non-trainable? The reason I ask is because we have a black lab that is going through training, and I can't imagine if something happened to me that she would be my service dog.
I will never say a dog is non-trainable.
Okay.
I will say not every dog can become a service dog. And in fact, very few dogs really have the temperament and the ability to not only learn tasks that help their person, but to be able to do them in a wide variety of environments with different sights and sounds and shopping carts going by and loudspeakers and traffic, that they can still focus on the person and do the task, and that the dog feels comfortable about it and they're not getting stressed. So it does take a special dog to be able to be a service dog, but I think every dog is probably trainable to a certain extent.
Sure. Yeah, I can just see myself in a wheelchair and having Maddie, my service dog, go after a red fox as I'm being flown down the street.
Right. So those are good things that we have to teach impulse control to dogs. That if they see something that looks really appealing to them and they want to go and investigate it or bark at it or things like that, we have to help the person teach their own dog to have impulse control so the dog won't do that. They'll stay right by the side by the person and keep that focus on what they're supposed to be doing.
And so do you have volunteers that help as well, or are they all professional trainers?
We utilize professional trainers. We think it's really important for consistency because there is going to be that year to year and a half initial training relationship. And then we supplement, we have volunteers who assist our professional trainers. So our trainers are meeting with students and their dogs about once a week or more if they can. And it's all done through private training, private one-on-one lessons, and then we supplement it with group lessons. So that's where we bring in multiple students and their dogs, add distractions, they can learn from one another, and practice what they learned in their private lessons.
It's an interesting dynamic because you already have the pet. So the pet already knows you, versus if you receive a service dog that's been trained somewhere else and then comes into your home?
Correct. It is a different dynamic. We do see that the bond between the human and the dog gets very, very strong because they are, learning together. We're teaching the individual and the individual's teaching their dog. And it becomes a very, very strong bond between the person and the dog. One of the advantages of our model, where we do teach the person how to train their dog, is that they know the techniques. We use only positive reinforcement techniques. And so say they have a disability that's going to be progressive, where they might need their dog in future years to do additional tasks than what were originally trained. They often are able to teach their dog how to help them in different ways, in additional ways, without needing our assistance. But of course, we're always there to help them as well if need be.
And so are you only in Arizona, or do you do this across the country?
We are only in Tucson. It's very important that this training is done on a local basis with local trainers. So, we don't do videos training or things like that. We want that one-on-one relationship in person with the person and the dog.
And do you get people from outside of the state coming in, or most of your clients within the state?
Most of our clients are in the state. They're within the Tucson area because It is, they're coming in, they're doing training at least once a week. So they have to live here in order to make this work for them. We did have one person who actually moved to Tucson with a relative happened to live here, and she moved just to get her dog trained through us.
Well, that's why I asked, because I would imagine that you're probably one in a million if you wanted your dog to be your service dog.
There's other people out there who I think are training, but one of the things I like to make sure people know too is that not everybody who comes into the program or wants to be part of the program is accepted into it. So before the person can start training their dog, they have to go through an application process to verify kind of what their disability, what they're looking to train their dog to do, what tasks will help them with more independence. And then we do an assessment of their dog. So we're going to do things to see what happens when different sights and sounds are approached. When we bring another dog in, is there any resource guarding? Does the dog look like it's interested in learning, whether through food motivation, praise, or maybe a toy? So we're going to do some testing of that dog first, and then we're also going to talk to the person pretty much in depth about what's required for training, because it's not just a weekly class, it's also every day doing your homework, reinforcing what you learned in the weekly lesson with your instructor to make sure it's a right fit for this program.
And do you have a maximum amount of people that could be in the program?
So far we have enough trainers that they work varied schedules that we're able to accommodate everybody who wants to come into the program. We also introduced in 2016 a new program called Rescue to Service. What we had found out, there were quite a few people who wanted to do this, but they either didn't have an appropriate dog or they didn't have a dog at all. And so we partnered with local animal welfare organizations and the big shelters, as well as smaller organizations locally. And now we are seeking out dogs looking for forever homes that we think could be good service dogs. They go live with a foster family for at least 3 months while we undergo a 3-month assessment, and that foster comes to weekly training with us. And those that make it through that multi-month assessment, then they get matched to a person with a disability who adopts the dog and continues training it for its own need.
Oh, that's wonderful.
It's been a very exciting program, and it's not quite 2 years old yet. We learn a lot as we're going.
Oh, I'm sure. Well, that's
one of
wonderful.
One of the main reasons we did this program was because we were experiencing people who would go adopt a dog to train as their service dog, and then after a couple months they realized it wasn't going to be appropriate. So, that's heartbreaking. They've already created a bond, but that dog's not going to be able to help them for service work. So the fostering element really helps us see what a dog is like in the real world when it's, being socialized, when it's living in a home environment, when it's being taken out to, public places where pets are allowed. And about 50% of the dogs that we select do not make it into being adopted for service work. Instead, they're adopted out as a great pet dog.
Okay, which is also good.
Absolutely.
I have 2 slugs, so. And so I'd love to know what events you have or how people can donate to your cause. And I will put it in the show notes just because I'm sure this will hit, thousands of people of being interested on your organization.
Well, that's wonderful. They can always donate through our website, which is handi-dogs.org, HANDI-dogs with an S.org. We also have 2 major fundraisers a year that are local to Tucson. In the spring, this year in 2018, it's going to be April 7th. We have an event called Doggy Shorts at Furry Film Fest. And it's a series of 30-second to 10-minute short films, videos that all feature dogs from all types of genres. People will laugh and cry and just be amazed and interested in what these dogs are doing. And then in fall of every year, we have an event called Dogtoberfest. And Dogtoberfest is a carnival for dogs. So last year we had about 1,700 people and 700 dogs come. And dogs paint pictures. We have an obstacle course. We have a radar gun to see how fast the dog runs. There's a sniffing game. There's a mini gym. There's tunnels. All sorts of things for people to do with their dogs throughout the day. And then for the people, there's a beer garden and live band. So Dogtoberfest has become kind of an iconic event within Tucson.
Oh, that's wonderful. What a great idea.
It's a blast. It really is. It's one of these events where if you like to do things with your dog, you go to the event and it's, just lots of different things to do throughout the, 3-4 hours or a couple hours that you probably are actually there with your dog because your dog's going to get tired quick.
Yeah, right. Exactly. Especially being around all the dogs and all the activity and the energy but what a great event and what a great idea.
It's been a blast, and we usually have about 50 vendors there too for the people to go and shop and look at different things and pick up information. And because we're in Tucson, it used to be in October, but we still were getting 90-degree weather, so we've moved it back to the first week in November now. But always hope for about 80-degree weather.
Yeah. Oh, wow. So I would love to have you back on the podcast and discuss more dog training tips, what's going on with right before you have these events, to come and talk about what's going on, how people can support the cause. So I certainly appreciate your time.
Oh, well, thank you. I'd love to come back and talk with you more too.
Well, thank you very much, and we will talk to you soon.
Thank you for listening to Bark and Wag's 15-Minute Vet Talk. If you like what you just heard, we hope you'll pass along our web address, www.barkandwag.com, to your friends and other pet owners. Have a pressing question for a veterinarian? Ask your question at barkandwag.com under the podcast tab. This has been a KFR production. Join us next time for another edition of Bark and Wag's 15-Minute Vet Talk.